Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is getting unstuck. We often find ourselves in a rut with routines that just, while they can be comforting, can also just sort of deaden us to life. And so today we're going to talk about how we can unstick ourselves. So before we get started, let's take, good morning, Roslyn. Welcome, welcome. So good to start the day with you. And also with everybody else who's joining us. So let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, today we're talking about getting unstuck. There are so many different levels of getting unstuck, aren't there? Just in daily routines, in a greater context of life. Where this is coming up for me is that I have a friend who does biogeometry. Really interesting, really interesting biogeometry. And there's a book by Ibrahim Karim called Biogeometric Signatures. And it's fascinating because it's talking about these energy patterns, diagrammatic patterns that impact our energy. And the idea is that we are not a contained energy field. We are in constant exchange with our environment. And as such, if there's an obstruction or some kind of impediment in our body or in our environment, it's an exchange. So by shifting the energy of the environment, we can shift our energy. And by shifting our energy, we shift the energy of the environment. It's not a one or the other. It's a cycle, maybe. Anyway, so I have engaged my friend to do an energy assessment. It takes into account the energies of the earth, like ley lines and water underground and all kinds of earth energies, in addition to electronic and electrosmog kinds of things, and very interesting. So I'm learning about this, and it's very stimulating for me. But what I have noticed is I've lived in the same place for more than 20 years, which is remarkable because I used to move around so much. But as I am beginning to conceptualize the next phase of my life where I'm relocating. Rosalind says sources, earth, air, and solar prana energy. Yes, and our energy and the energy of all the devices and whatever that we surround ourselves with. I've got quite a few electrical inputs and Wi-Fi and all of that. So there's all kinds of sources that are that to balance. Anyway, so I, over the years of living where I am, I have collected lots of things. And I really love the things that I have collected. And, you know, there are things that I can purge as well and start to be ready to, or more ready to be in action, to be moving into the next phase of life. And I have to admit that I felt a bit stuck, a bit stagnant with being able to take that action to move forward. So like going through books and purging stuff, and it's been kind of a stagnant feeling. And I see that in my lack of initiative in moving forward with some things that I'm very committed to. It's just that I haven't had the energy. I'm feeling stuck, in other words. And so I've been considering, well, what does it take to get unstuck? And some things, some aspects of getting unstuck can be pretty simple, like taking an action out of the routine. So, for instance, if you're in the house, maybe take a walk or meditate or do something differently than you normally do it. And for me, this energy work that this friend is doing with me is one aspect of becoming unstuck, for sure. That's the intention, is to loosen up the density of the energy here. And also getting out of your routine environment. So I'm not going to be here the month of September, because I'm going to be in a different time zone. So they'll be playing replays. I have the month of September off, and I'm actually going out to California. So that's pretty exciting. My cat and I are taking a road trip. So that should be pretty exciting. Anyway, we're going out to California. And that is a disruption, a pretty dramatic disruption of my routine. So that's kind of exciting. It's a little intimidating and a lot exciting, you know, to be setting out into the unknown, to be setting out into uncharted territories. And I'm going to have the opportunity to meet a lot of people in person that I only know virtually. So that's super exciting. And anyway, I'm starting in anticipation of this big pattern interrupt to feel the movement of energy. Like there's some inertia to overcome. I think that when we feel stuck, that's the biggest challenge, is to overcome the inertia, the energy that is keeping us in the same routine. You know, like getting the ball rolling is the hardest part, right? And so what does it take to do that? Maybe, you know, I guess the will to be unstuck needs to be greater than the inertia. And I'm not sure how we get there. Maybe it just gets to be so uncomfortable that we finally make the choice to make a change. Wouldn't it be awesome if it doesn't have to be unbearable first? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could have an impulse, have that creative desire to make a change and to honor it? So I think that that's probably a big key to this thing, where we honor our impulse. Because what I've seen happen over and over and over with myself as well as other people is that there will be a desire that shows up, and then we dismiss it because it's not practical or it's not easy. It means that we would have to make some disruption. It means that things would have to change. We find all kinds of excuses to not honor those impulses, right? And I'm not talking about just being impulsive. I'm talking about recognizing something that's coming from your heart and soul, a desire, and we don't honor it. Maybe it's even something as simple as, I need a break. I need some rest. We might find ourselves saying that and ignoring it. And what I've seen happen over and over and over again in those kinds of situations is that as that gets ignored more and more, the reminders to honor it become more and more intense, until oftentimes when someone needs a break, when someone needs rest, and they don't take the opportunity to get that rest, their body will create an opportunity for them to get that rest, often through what we perceive of as disease. And so when we pay attention, then we can avoid that situation of disease or dis-ease. I remember I would push myself and push myself and push myself until I finally got sick and was laid out for days. And what I've learned from that is that I don't need to do that. If I'm tired, I get to take the time. And I give myself that time to just rest, to do nothing, and not judge myself. And as a result, I can say I haven't been sick in a couple years, I think, ever since I got COVID in the beginning of the pandemic. So I haven't been sick. I've been tired. I've spent a day in bed on multiple occasions just resting, but I haven't been sick because I pay attention more. I don't make my body rebel. You know, we're working together much better, my body and I. And I think that that's something, when we listen, maybe we don't get into the same kind of ruts. A lot of the things that we do are routine, right? And there's comfort in routines. I'm not saying there isn't. There's comfort in routines. There's some sense of safety that a routine can provide us, a sense of continuity that a routine can provide. And there's also, as with anything else that is a positive thing, it can also have its downside, because when we have this routine, we can tend to go unconscious. And we can end up feeling stuck or being stuck. And so finding the balance between routine and creativity can be a challenging thing. Welcome, welcome, Gia. So good to have you with us today. It's great to have you joining us. So we're talking about getting unstuck and balancing routine versus like the benefits of routine versus the challenges of routine that can have us be robotic and unconscious. And, it's interesting because I said routine versus creativity, but that's not necessarily the case. I know several people who write, for instance, and providing themselves with an opportunity to do that at the same time every day, or people who meditate at the same time every day. What happens is that we kind of, our body and being gets in this greater rhythm that says, oh, okay, this is meditation time. And it allows you perhaps to go more deeply into the writing or the creative act or the meditation. And it's an interesting balance to see how we can and how we do program ourselves. I know people who have morning routines where they wake up and put their feet on the floor and use that moment as an opportunity to express gratitude, to set up the context for the day, and to be in that space of presence and gratitude is super powerful. And that is a routine that maybe prevents stuckness. I'm not really sure. Isn't it interesting to use routine in a paradoxical way to be unstuck? Like the creative act or meditation or setting a certain block of time for journaling, for example. And those kinds of uses of that structure are perhaps quite positive. When the structure allows us enlivenment versus a deadening down, then go for it. In thinking about my situation, feeling a little stuck where I am, where I'm living in my space, the energy just feels kind of oppressive and stagnant. And so looking to enliven that is what I'm up to, and to create more vitality for myself. So it's kind of an interesting adventure to be looking at the areas in our lives where we are stuck, and to look at what kind of new energy or shift can we inject into that will bring us greater reward, that will bring us greater fulfillment, greater vitality. I just had the image of a pot with a lid on it, and the lid can help the water to boil, right? Because it can create this pressure, this inside container, and that boiling can be a good thing or not so much. I mean, the water will boil with or without a lid, but the lid helps, it builds pressure, and that pressure can be a good thing, or that pressure can be too much. And yeah, so I invite you to look, are there places in your life where you feel stagnant? And if so, what would it look like to break out of that, to create a new pattern, to do something different? You know, if you always make your bed in a certain way, maybe make it different, maybe leave it unmade for a day. Or so if you don't make your bed, maybe make it. What would it look like if you just switched up your routine? It's interesting to look at this notion of safety, comfort, and security. Admittedly, we don't really know what life is going to bring from one minute to another. So if we're able to provide ourselves with certain routines that offer a sense of comfort, continuity, safety, that can be a lovely thing. Like maybe we have a morning ritual of a cup of tea or coffee, and we give ourselves that opportunity to presence ourselves. Now, that's great if you're present. If you're getting the morning coffee or tea or whatever, and you're numb to it, or you're not aware of it, or you're not enjoying it, really present to it, then maybe it's time to switch up a routine. Rosalind says being on time, maybe arriving 15 minutes early. That's an interesting thing. Oh my gosh, the issues that people have around time. Holy moly. I know some people. I went traveling with a friend who couldn't be on time to save her life. It was the wildest thing. And even though we had a long conversation about it and said, for this thing, it's so important, please, 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 can we make an agreement to be on time? We made this agreement, and then she was still late. And being on the other side of that, where I was counting on somebody to be on time, and then they made the agreement and then did not uphold their end of the agreement. It was maddening. It was crazy. And I noticed that happens with a bunch of different people, that they cannot be on time. And so there's something about that in terms of the stories that we tell. And maybe that's a rut, is always being on time or never being on time. If there are things in our lives where we can say always or never, then that might be a good clue to what's a rut. What's something, a pattern that maybe we could disrupt and provide ourselves with greater freedom. If we have always and never that we attach to certain things, certain ideas. Yeah. This notion of stagnant energy, I think it's a felt sense. For me, it is. It's a felt sense of stagnation, and trying to find ways to start circulating that energy more, to not be being stuck, but to have that energy moving. Anyway, that's it for today. So I'm Mira Rubin. I can't even say my own name today. Oh, Gia, I had this pattern on being late. I've worked a lot around it. Now it's far, far better. It's not that I didn't try ever, but it was difficult for me to unlearn being late. And my husband is always before time. Finally, he taught me this. Rosalind says, having dishes in the sink. I'm getting better about it. That was one I had too, Rosalind. And Gia, thank you for sharing about your pattern and that you've been able to shift it. That's dramatic and wonderful. And it is patterns, you know, like there may be underlying beliefs or some kind of issue that is underneath the surface that we get to address, you know, that we get to identify. And by getting ourselves out of these patterns, we can really open things up that you wouldn't anticipate would open up, because these patterned behaviors are connected with each other, and in that they're connected internally, all these different patterns. So if you disrupt one, it maybe makes possibility for other flow to happen. Anyway, that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And as always, it is such a deep privilege to spend this time with you and to be entertaining new ways of thinking and being. And so until